All right, so today we're going deep diving into Satan.
Ooh,
But here's the thing. Our sources are transcripts from 3 hypnosis sessions, and get this, they're all in Russian.
interesting.
Yeah, and they explore the nature of evil.
And to make it even more interesting, these aren't your typical clinical hypnosis sessions. They
Yeah.
come from a channel that's dedicated to paranormal investigation.
So we're dealing with people who are willing to be hypnotized
Yeah,
and delve into the dark side.
exactly.
That's pretty wild. What kind of insights did these sessions reveal?
Oh, well, right away, each subject had completely different visions of Satan.
Really?
One saw a swirling mass of snakes.
Thanks.
Yeah, another one saw images of indigenous tribes
Yeah.
morphing into this wolf-like monster.
Okay.
And then the third one described a cloud-like entity that was connected to people through the tops of their heads.
Wow, that's a pretty diverse range of imagery. It doesn't exactly give us a clear picture of what Satan is, does it?
That's exactly the point. The
Mhm.
concept of Satan is so malleable. It's been shaped and reshaped by culture, religion, individual beliefs over centuries.
So are you saying that instead of one definitive Satan, we have this constantly evolving idea of evil?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And that evolution is evident when we look at all the different names and titles associated with Satan,
Like what?
like Lucifer, Beelzebub, Enlil.
Uh-huh.
One of the subjects, Valeria, saw them all as figures on a rotating wheel,
Okay.
each one representing a different era and the evolution of negative energy.
Hold on, a rotating wheel of evil. So the face of evil might change, but the core concept remains. What kind of Satan, so to speak, might we be dealing with today?
That's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
Another subject, Karina, she envisioned a puppet master who was controlling all of these different entities.
A puppet master.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a bit creepy. But it also makes me wonder about the nature of power. Is Satan a single entity calling the shots, or is it more of a force that adapts to different situations?
Those are excellent questions.
Yeah.
And they tie into how we perceive and understand these forces of good and evil. Is it a cosmic battle between two defined sides or something more nuanced?
Right.
These hypnosis sessions, they offer some pretty thought-provoking perspectives on all of this.
I'm ready to hear it. So where did Satan come from?
Ooh, that's a great question. The sessions explored some pretty wild origin stories.
I bet.
One subject connected the emergence of Satan to humanity's shift from self-reliance to reliance on external forces.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's almost
Yeah.
like we invited this external force into our lives because we gave up our own agency.
It's a really interesting idea.
Yeah, it makes me think about how much we rely on institutions and governments and technology today. Have we become too dependent on things outside of ourselves?
It's something to ponder.
Yeah, could that dependence make us vulnerable to manipulation?
Possibly. Then you have another subject who goes full sci-fi, describing Satan as this powerful being from another world who got trapped here on Earth
Mm-hmm.
and decided to meddle in our affairs.
Okay, hold on. Now that's a twist I didn't see coming. An extraterrestrial Satan stuck on Earth. That sounds like a movie.
Right.
But seriously, it raises the question of whether evil is something inherent to humanity or something that came from outside.
Exactly. And then there's this whole concept of Satan having a genetic code,
What?
this ethereal blueprint for darkness that's somehow present within us all.
Wait, a genetic code for evil? Are you saying that we're all born with the potential for darkness inside of us?
But that's what these hypnosis sessions suggest.
Okay.
One subject envisioned this diminishing DNA spiral,
Okay.
implying that we've devolved from this higher state of being and lost some essential purity or connection to good.
So it's like we've all got this evil gene lurking inside of us,
It's one interpretation.
and it's only a matter of time before it takes over.
Not necessarily. There's another interpretation, too. Another subject described a hybrid DNA,
Okay.
the result of interdimensional mixing.
Interdimensional
Yeah, and get this, a diet of negative human energies.
Hold on. Interdimensional mixing and a diet of negativity. What does that even mean? Are we saying that we can literally feed this darkness through our own negative thoughts and actions?
Yeah, it's a fascinating concept, isn't it? This idea that we
Yeah.
might be feeding this darkness. But let's move on to something else in the sessions that I found really interesting.
What's that?
The role of symbols in rituals.
Oh, yeah, all that spooky imagery.
Right.
You've got the inverted, the swastika, the goat's head,
Mm-hmm.
all the usual suspects when it comes to representing evil.
Exactly. But there's more to it than just shock value.
I figured.
One of the subjects, Tamarick, she described these symbols as Keys?
Keys.
Yeah, tools for accessing certain energies or dimensions.
Mm,
So they're not inherently good or evil in themselves,
okay.
but their power depends on the intention behind them.
I see. So it's like a knife can be used to cook or to harm someone.
Exactly.
It depends on who's using it.
Right. And this raises an interesting question for us.
What's that?
Can a symbol that seems benign be co-opted for darker purposes?
Hmm. That's a good question. Like what?
Well, the Eye of Horus, for example,
Uh-huh.
is often associated with protection and healing.
Yeah, I always thought of it as a positive symbol.
Right. Well, one of the subjects, Allah, she connected to Set,
Who's that?
an Egyptian deity with a much more complex nature,
Oh,
potentially destructive.
interesting. So even the most powerful symbols can have multiple interpretations
Absolutely.
and be used in ways that we didn't intend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how are we supposed to navigate this world of symbols then?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're surrounded by them.
Right.
From religious icons to corporate logos, how do we know which ones to embrace and which ones to be wary of?
It all comes down to discernment
Okay.
and critical thinking, questioning assumptions,
Uh-huh.
researching where the symbols come from, understanding the context.
Mm.
Symbols have power,
Yeah,
but that power ultimately lies in how we interpret them.
that's a good point. We can't just blindly accept any symbol at face value.
Right.
We need to think about what it really represents. But let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
These sessions also talked about the biblical portrayal of Satan, which is pretty controversial.
Yeah.
What did they say about that?
All three of the subjects suggested that the biblical Satan serves as a tool for control.
Really?
Yeah. A way to instill fear and obedience,
Hmm.
motivating people to seek salvation through external authorities.
So they're saying that evil is just a construct to keep us in line.
It's one interpretation.
Mm.
Allah, one of the subjects, she went so far as to describe a deliberate distortion of ancient knowledge.
Like what?
She believes that spiritual truths were manipulated to limit human potential
Hmm.
and direct energy towards specific agendas.
Hold on. Are we getting into conspiracy theories here?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
What's important is to consider how these interpretations challenge traditional religious dogma
Okay.
and encourage us to think critically about our own beliefs.
Right. Where do our ideas about good and evil even come from?
Exactly. And who benefits from those beliefs?
Those are good questions. It's almost like these sessions are telling us to question authority, to really dig deep into what we believe,
Yeah,
and be mindful of how symbols can be used to influence us.
absolutely. And speaking of influence,
Yeah.
the sessions also explored the impact of words themselves.
Oh, wow.
They compared the reactions that people had to saying Satan
Okay.
versus Satanama.
What's Satana?
It's a Sanskrit mantra that's used in Kundalini yoga.
Interesting. Is it like a counterspell to the word Satan?
It's a mantra that works with different energies.
Yeah.
One of the subjects, Tamara, said she felt nothing when she said Satan,
Huh.
but she noticed a strong reaction in people who were afraid of the name.
So the power of the word is all about the beliefs and emotions we associate with it.
Exactly. Like if you don't believe in Satan,
Right.
the word doesn't have power over you.
But if you've grown up fearing the devil, hearing that word could trigger negative emotions.
Exactly. And Allah, she was familiar with this mantra.
Mm-hmm.
She described a physical and energetic sucking in sensation when saying Satanama.
Really?
Yeah, and she cautioned against using it because of its potential for manipulation
Wow.
and depletion of vital energies.
That's interesting. It all comes back to intention and belief shaping the impact of language.
Yeah,
So it's not just what we say, but how we say it
exactly.
and the energy behind it.
Absolutely. And this actually connects to another fascinating concept explored in the sessions.
What's that?
The potential link between World War II occult rituals and the manipulation of energy.
Are we talking about Nazis and black magic?
It's a controversial topic.
I bet.
Allah, the subject who talked about the hybrid DNA,
Yeah.
she believes that individuals with knowledge of the occult deliberately manipulated energy,
Okay.
and these manipulations contributed to the horrors of the war,
So she's saying that the Nazis were influenced by darker forces,
or even working with them.
and they used rituals and symbols to increase their power.
That's her interpretation. She describes the Nazi regime as being particularly susceptible to these darker influences,
Interesting.
using rituals and symbolism to fuel their quest for power.
I can see how that might connect to the whole idea of Satan as a puppet master,
Yeah.
pulling the strings behind the scenes and using humans to carry out his agenda.
Right. The sessions don't provide definitive answers about how extensive these manipulations were.
Okay.
but they present these events as a cautionary tale.
Right. So what are we supposed to learn from all of this? Are we just pawns in some cosmic game between good and evil?
That's a great question, and one that the sessions actually address.
Okay.
It all comes down to the illusion of non-existence.
The illusion of non-existence. What do you mean by that?
Well, she actually quotes Baudelaire in one of the sessions.
Okay.
He said, "The devil's finest trick is to persuade you that he does not exist."
Right?
And she connects that to modern society
Mm-hmm.
and how we tend to dismiss anything supernatural or occult as just superstition.
So we're so focused on rationality and scientific proof that we've blinded ourselves to other possibilities.
Exactly. And Allah argues that this makes us much more vulnerable to manipulation.
If we don't believe in it, we won't see it coming.
Right.
It's like closing your eyes and pretending the monster under the bed isn't there.
Exactly. And Allah, she doesn't just stop at vague, dark forces.
Oh.
She points to very specific things like media propaganda and even NLP techniques.
Hold on, NLP, what's that?
It stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming.
Okay.
Basically, it's a technique that uses language patterns and sensory cues to influence someone,
Influence how?
their thoughts, feelings, and actions.
Oh, wow.
It can be used for good things like therapy,
Right.
but it can also be used for manipulation,
Like what?
like advertising or political propaganda.
So it's a form of mind control.
It can be, especially when it's used unethically.
And Alice saying that we're constantly bombarded with messages that are designed to influence us.
Yeah, and we don't even realize it.
So we're swimming in a sea of manipulation.
In a way,
Yeah.
and we don't even know it.
But that's where self-awareness is so important.
Okay.
If we develop critical thinking skills, question the information we're given, and just become more aware of how we're being influenced, we can break free.
So it's not about being afraid of Satan.
Not really.
It's about taking responsibility for our own minds.
Exactly.
And realizing that the battle between good and evil is actually happening within us.
You got it.
Wow, I've never thought about it like that before. It's like these hypnosis sessions are a wake-up call.
I think so. They're urging us to really pay attention and think for ourselves.
My mind is officially blown after all of this.
Yeah.
We started with who is Satan,
Right.
and we ended up talking about everything from ancient myths to manipulation to the power of words. It's been quite a journey.
It has. And what I think makes these sessions so compelling is that they don't give us easy answers.
That's true.
They raise more questions than they answer.
They definitely do.
But that's a good thing. It's about sparking curiosity and making us think critically. Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the dark side, here's a final thought for you all.
Okay.
If Satan represents our own shadow selves, those parts of ourselves that we're afraid of or try to hide,
Yeah.
how can we face those parts and integrate them so we can become more whole, more conscious, and more empowered? Something to think about, isn't it?
It is. And that might be the most important takeaway from all of this.
What's that?
The real battle isn't against some external evil out there. It's against the ignorance and the fear and the unconsciousness within us.
By facing our shadows, we can reclaim our power.
Exactly.
This is The Deep Dive signing off. Thanks for listening.